2308. I'm Commissioner Dave Nelson. We have a special set this case for this afternoon to be heard on the petition for emergency minor guardianship. If I grant the petition, it will be good for 60 days. And at the end of that time, it can be renewed for another 60 days if the conditions warrant it. I'm not aware at this point if a full guardianship petition has been filed, but typically the longest an emergency minor guardianship order can last is 120 days.
Yes, Your Honor. It's our position that the guardianship should be dismissed based on the GAL report. It appears that the mother is fit and able to care for the children. It's my client's position that will prove through testimony that he's likewise fit and able, willing to care for the children. And based on that, there's no basis for the emergency guardianship. We understand that, as said in our trial brief, that the court's probably going to be hesitant to move the children to New York. But what we need to do is get rid of the guardianship, get this into the family law realm, get a parenting plan going between the parties, and let that judge decide what's going to happen with the children with regard to the parents.
Yes, Your Honor, similar to Mr. South, just my client, she's a fit parent. And I would agree that she should file for a parenting plan, and then they could deal with the children that way.
Mr. Angelico?
Thank you, Your Honor. Based on the guardianship, based on the guardian ad litem's report, Ms. Farr's report, Your Honor, what I believe the expected testimony to be, and also based on current situation, Your Honor, I believe that in this particular case that the evidence would show the need to continue the guardianship or to grant the emergency guardianship for the 60-day period, and that the children should remain with the petitioners. I'm sure that it would be, at some point, it would be advantageous to have this in the family law realm to where they could establish a parenting plan. However, I don't believe the current situation is that that has happened or is in the process of happening. And based on what I believe the guardian ad litem's report shows and the testimony, that is not in the best interest of the children for this guardianship to be dismissed and for them not to be in the care of the grandparents.
Thank you. And you're the petitioner in this matter along with David Schneider? And,
yes.
And Mr. Schneider is your husband at this point?
Yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Tell the court why you feel the court should grant the petition for minor guardianship.
Well, the children have been with us since 2019. They've been attending school here in our district since that time. They're covered by insurance. They're healthy, happy, thriving. Their mother got here last March, and she's been with us ever since, getting back together with her kids. But in the best interest of the kids, I think it's that staying here with us and with her is the best situation currently.
Do you think the mother is capable of fulfilling her parenting role at this point?
Absolutely.
Is she intending to remain with you in the future?
I don't know exactly what her intentions are. Currently, this is the situation. And I'm sure she'll be able to tell you better than I can what her long-range plans are. But currently with her other two newborns and her other Gabe and Celeste, we're helping her raise them and see that they have everything that they need.
What kind of contact has Mr. Hebding had with Gabriel and Celeste, say in the last year?
In the last year, well, since June, there've been the mandatory video chats with the kids, and sometimes he can call and chat with them or play games whenever he wants. They have a computer that they can communicate back and forth. So the regular phone and video chat contact.
And he's been participating in that?
Yes, yes,
And the children enjoy talking to their father?
yes.
Okay. I'm going to go around and see who wants to ask you additional questions. We'll start with Mr. South.
Thank you, Your Honor. So, Ms. Istolette, you stated that that the mother, Lindsay, is able to fulfill her parenting role.
She is currently doing that with our help, yes, considering two newborns as well.
And she's willing to do that.
Yes, she does.
Okay.
Mhm.
And is she able to maintain a loving, stable, consistent relationship with the children?
Absolutely.
How about taking care of them? Is she able to feed them and clothe them and take care of their grooming, those types of things?
She does with our help. She's living with us, and so we pitch in because she has the two babies, but she's able to do all of that, yes.
Okay. Is she able to exercise appropriate judgment with regard to parenting the children?
Yes.
That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
Yes, Your Honor, thank you. So there was something in the petition about Lindsay had a psychotic episode. Is that right?
That was a year or so ago, yes.
But would you say she's kind of better from that now?
Yes,
So you don't have any worries about her mental health or anything like that?
not currently, no.
All right, that's all I had. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you. Mr. Angelico?
Ms. Estolette, you indicated that she had a psychotic episode about a year ago, correct? And she had came to live with you in March of
Yeah.
2022.
Yes.
And had she had, to your knowledge, has she had mental health issues prior to 2022 and prior to the psychotic episode?
Not that I can know. And I think she says her doctor said it wasn't a one-time thing since it happened so late in her life.
Has she been in mental health treatment?
At that time,
Since
she
she's been with you, has she been in mental health treatment?
had any mental health treatment.
I'm asking you.
Oh, I'm sorry. Not
directed to her.
that I'm aware of.
Okay, and you indicated that she's able to take care of the children. Does that include, currently, does she work?
No,
So financially, is she supporting the children currently?
no,
So if she were given the children and were to be able not to be with you, in other words, to move, would she have the ability financially to move with the children, establish her own place of residence?
not currently.
And when you say that you're helping take care of the children, so my understanding is she has, is it twins?
Yes,
And how old are the twins?
they are 8 months.
So would you say for the most part that you and your husband are taking care of Gabriel and Celeste?
All of us together kind of do it. We take them to school. I do most of the cooking, help them with their homework, but I don't know how to do it percentage wise, but she helps also.
Okay. Would it be fair to say that you do the majority of the care for the two older children?
Yes,
And in fact, you help also with the twins, do you not?
I do.
Okay. And in regard to, you didn't speak to any type of feeling or opinion as to whether or not the father is a capable person to parent the children. Is the father, to your opinion, capable of parenting the children?
I have reservations about that. I don't think so.
Are parts of those reservations based on the fact of the incident that happened in 2019 in which he stabbed a person in front of the children?
Yes, and other incidents that of use of alcohol and other drugs in their presence, and just ongoing criminal incidents that I'm aware of.
Are you aware of whether or not your daughter has had past incidents with alcohol or marijuana or drugs?
I am, yes,
Okay,
but there's none now.
okay. Is that, in your opinion, is that due in part to the fact that she's living with you?
Yes. And she
Uh,
does drive currently.
And that, had that been the case when she was not living with you?
You mean, did she use alcohol and drugs?
Yes.
Yes, on occasion.
Would you describe her as thriving when she was not living with you?
No,
You indicated that there had been video visitation with Mr. Hebding.
yes.
Has Mr. Hebding physically seen the children?
He did,
Face-to-face visits with the kids in person, not video?
only last June when he was in Washington State. They had a supervised visit with him in June of last year.
And is there a concern if Mr. Hebding has unsupervised visits in person?
Unsupervised it's in person. Minor concern, maybe. I don't think that he would harm them.
And do you think that those visitations should be supervised or unsupervised if the guardianship was, emergency guardianship was approved?
I could maybe say unsupervised
Okay.
if they were short term.
And would there be, your opinion, would that be in Washington State, or could that occur in New York?
I would say Washington State only.
So he had visitation in June, supervised visitation in June. Okay. And has there been any indication that he would be coming to Washington to visit the children anywhere in the near future?
In the near, not that I'm aware of. He wanted to possibly visit when they had their spring break, but he said that he couldn't make it because he couldn't afford it, so he didn't come on spring break.
Okay. And have you or Lindsay, either one, to your knowledge, have you or Lindsay received any type of support from Mr. Hebding?
None.
Is there not? So there's been no money exchanged or anything given to the children other than possibly just gifts?
Just gifts, and that he did send them the computer that they video chat on.
Okay. Are you aware of whether or not that Lindsay recognizes that the incident that happened in 2019 in front of the children was concerning?
Do I think that she's aware? Yes.
And I'm object to that question.
On what basis?
He's asking her opinion of what someone else was thinking.
I'll sustain on that grounds. If you can inquire if she ever mentioned anything to her mother about it.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Estolette, has she ever mentioned to you that that prior to the 2019 incident that they had a good relationship?
That's asking for hearsay.
Okay, well, the mother's here, so you can ask the mother her position on that directly.
Thank
I'll
you.
sustain.
And do you think it's in the best interest, Ms. Estolette, do you think it's in the best interest for the court to grant the minor emergency guardianship? Best interest of the children?
Are you addressing me?
Yes.
Yes.
And what basis or why do you believe that?
I just believe that they are in a good place here. They're safe, happy, healthy. I'm not too sure about the conditions in New York. I did go into the home that they were living in. It was not suitable, and I just think that this is a better spot for them, surrounded by with their mother and their other siblings.
And you indicated that they were insured currently.
Mm-hmm.
So what was the condition of their health and dental when they came to reside with you?
Well, when they came to reside with me, they didn't look very healthy. Gabriel had, I think, 5 very large cavities that required oral surgery. And we had that taken care of. He's getting ready, prep for braces.
And who paid for the dental surgery?
We did, and our insurance did too.
So currently they're on your insurance plan?
Yes.
If you don't have, if you did not have the guardianship, would they be available to your insurance plan?
As long as they live with us, they can be covered until they're like 26 years old.
So grandchildren on your policy could be covered?
Mhm.
Okay. And if they happen to move, then any coverage would discontinue?
Yes.
And they're covered for both medical and dental?
Mhm.
So the braces upcoming that Gabriel's going to need would be covered by your insurance as long as they're living with you or
Yes.
under your care?
Yes. And the dentist also says that Celeste is going to probably need braces too, because she has the same crowding that Gabriel has. So they're predicting she will need them in the future too.
And to your knowledge, does either Mr. Hebding or Lindsay have insurance that would cover health or any type of dental work for the kids?
I'm not sure. I don't know about Mr. Hebding. I know that Lindsay has some insurance on herself and the two twins, but I don't know if that would cover, extensive dental work or not.
Okay. And to just establish the basis, how long have you and your husband, it's David, I believe.
Mhm.
How long have you and David been married?
Since 1996.
And currently there was Mr. Hebding in his trial aid, and I think previous and other in the other paperwork that had been filed, had indicated about the living situation there at your house.
Mhm.
Again, how big is your house?
Our house is roughly 1,800 square feet.
How many bedrooms and bathrooms are there in the house?
4 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
So currently, is it true that you, your husband David, Lindsay, and Gabriel, Celeste, and the 2 twins, there's 6 of you living at the house?
There are actually my other daughter and Lindsay's oldest daughter currently living here too.
And how old is your oldest daughter?
She is 43,
And how old is Lindsay's oldest daughter?
21.
What's her name?
Madeline?
Okay. And do you have any problem? There's some expression that there was a problem because of the small space of everybody living in this small space together. Has that been an issue?
Not really.
Okay, so everybody has a place to sleep, a place to be
Mhm.
private.
Mhm.
The kids themselves have a private room to be
They-
in. And as far as providing the food itself, has that been you and David providing the food?
Primarily.
Okay. And prior to March of last year, when Lindsay came to live with you, where was Lindsay living?
She was in New York State,
Was she with Mr. Hebding at that time?
on and off. I think when he went to jail, I don't know where she was. I think she had various friends that she would stay with. And I think they got back together for a time and then not. That's what I know from her, where she told me she was.
And when do you remember in 2019, did you fly to New York and then bring the children back to Washington State?
That was in November, and we actually flew back to Washington State on Thanksgiving Day of 2019.
Were you aware at the time of whether or not the children were subject to possibly being taken by CPS?
I was under the impression, yes, because I met with the social workers, and I was informed that there was a proceeding that was beginning to take place.
And did you taking the children, was that approved by social worker that you should take the children back to Washington State?
It was, and also by the sheriff's department there in Penn, New York, and the social workers that I met with thanked me for stepping in and taking them. I was concerned that there may be some legal ramifications of me leaving the state with them, but they said there was not. So.
And you weren't there for most of the, or any part of the investigation that occurred over the incident in 2019?
I actually brought my granddaughters in so they could interview them. It was during the time right after the incident happened. And I was there and I brought my granddaughters to the sheriff's department and to the CPS workers to talk.
How about Gabriel?
Gabriel was there, but apparently he wasn't in the same exact room when the incident took place. So I took him too because they asked me to, but I don't think they interviewed him.
Okay, and if that were the case, that would probably be in a report by the sheriff's office.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
I don't think I have any other questions, really.
All right. Ms. Estolette, were there any questions asked of you that you feel you need to provide any additional explanation for?
Can't think of anything.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So Ms. Estolette, I know the father had been here last June, I think. Other than that, what kind of contact have you had with him since he got out of prison?
Have I had with him?
Yes.
Only text messages mostly, and I don't know if I've spoken to him on the phone, mostly through text message.
Okay. So you haven't seen him in person, haven't seen where he's lived?
No, but I was at the home when I was in New York, so I know where he lives.
Okay. And which home is that?
That's the home on,
Is that his parents' home?
yes.
Okay. That's all I had, Your Honor.
All right. Thank you. Okay, Mr. Goodday, go ahead.
Thank you, Judge. So Lindsay, there's some talk about there was a psychotic episode. Can you let us know if you're psychotic now, if you're diagnosed, or just give us some insight into that?
Yeah, I was going through a lot of stress. It was after I left the house there and actually had to be homeless for a short time, and I got sleep deprived and stressed out, and ended up finding out I was pregnant with twins. So there was a lot of hormones going on, and the doctors diagnosed me as pregnancy-induced psychosis first. And then I went to a couple different hospitals where they interviewed me, and I talked about, some drug use that had happened over the past, and they just diagnosed it as a psychotic episode, got me on some medications and into hospital for a short time. And then once it settled down, they said, okay, that will likely never happen again. And they said, just keep taking your medicine for a while and it should sort itself out. And it did. And I'm no longer taking medication for that or anything. And nothing has happened since. Or before. The doctor let me know it was probably just a one-time episode. So
how long has it been that you've been feeling all right now?
It's been a little over a year since that happened. I recovered from that.
All right. And you said, have you taken care of the kids?
Yes.
All right.
I've had my two twins here. They were preemies. So, it's the 4 kids here. It's been very busy. So, but yeah, I'm doing everything I can right now that I'm able to do.
All right. And so you lived with the kids in Naples for a little while?
Yeah. We lived there in Naples from early 2018 to the end of 2019.
Okay. And you were able to feed them?
Yes.
Was your mother feeding them at that point?
No.
Okay. Were you taking them to medical appointments?
Yes.
Were you getting them the vaccinations that they needed to be up to date on?
Yeah, they were up to date.
Were they going to school there in New York when they lived with you?
Gabriel was. Celeste was a little too young to start school at that time.
At that time, were you working?
Yes.
All right. So you were providing things that they needed for them?
Yes.
Where were you working at?
I had a couple different jobs. I had a cleaning job. I had a company called Clean Craft. I go and clean up medical offices and stuff after they closed. And then I had a job at a winery for a little bit of time. And then I went back to the cleaning job. And I also, for a time, worked at a Best Western cleaning there.
Okay. And at this time, you're not working, is that right?
No, at this time, I'm staying home with the twins. They're 8 months right now. They're very busy and on the go. And since I have the chance to be here and take care of them here, I haven't put them in daycare or anything. I feel they're a little young right now. So when they can go, I want to get a job and everything, get back into work. So
Okay. So you do plan on doing that once they get a little older and you feel comfortable with that?
Yeah, they're very intensive in their needs right now, so I feel a little
And your
shaky
mom,
in daycare.
I hear you. And so your mom's helping you out, so you're kind of taking advantage of that, trying to, you know,
Yeah, yeah, my
be a
mom
good mom. Okay.
definitely helps a lot with them.
And is your mom wanting you to pay rent or anything like that?
She hasn't said anything.
Okay.
She hasn't said anything right now. I get food stamps right now, and I have a bunch backed up. I don't get to often to go into the store, but that's basically what I can contribute financially right now. I have a bunch of food stamps. I'm telling them, like, take me to the store so I can go stock the fridge, but and when I get a chance to go, I'll stock up. But she hasn't asked for rent money right now, which is really nice. And I don't have a job income right now, so I'd have to make some changes with getting the kids in daycare and stuff like that to be able to do that. So I'm thankful she hasn't right now.
Okay. What's your long-term plan? Are you gonna eventually move out and get your own place, or?
Yeah, I don't have like a plan set in stone right now. It's really expensive, the rental market right now. So I would definitely need to have the babies in daycare, preschool, to work on that plan. Long term, yeah, I would like to get my own place, and have the kids there, but I don't have any plans to leave this house right now in the near future.
Okay. And is there a lot of time periods right now where you're alone with your kids?
Yeah. With all of them, or with just the big kids, or
Or all of them, yeah, or both, or however you want to tell us.
I mean, since there's the group of us here, I honestly don't spend that much time alone with the kids, just because, my daughter's here, my sister's here, my parents are here, and they're retired. So, but I can, sometimes I have, it's just not very often, but it's not like there's a fear of me being alone with them or anything. I definitely, like, I'll take them for walks and stuff like that sometimes. And they're okay going for outings and leaving them here with me, and have done that before. So,
Okay. So do you feel like you're a fit parent, that you're able to parent your kids?
yeah. Aside from my financial situation at this time with the babies being so young, I don't feel I have any issues right now that stop me from being a fit parent.
But you are kind of relying on your mom's help right now financially.
Hmm.
So, okay. Is there anything else you think the court needs to know?
Well, the kids could definitely, if they needed to, but I guess if they live here, they can be on her insurance, but I have insurance that I could put them on, if they needed to be off of that insurance.
So if they
See.
got kicked off your mom's insurance, they could be put onto yours?
Yeah. I'm trying to think, there was so many questions for her. I'm trying to think of what else I can address right now. I don't see any reason why, I can't have custody of them. I don't see any reason that we need the order. I'm not planning on taking off right now or anything like that with the kids. I mean, where would I bring them? I don't have a place set up to bring them. But I don't see any reason to change the custody right now.
Okay.
I'm not a danger to them. I'm here alone with them sometimes, and here with other people with them all the time. So I'm not sure why my custody has to be interrupted, I guess you could say.
All right. I understand. Thanks, Lindsay. That's all the questions I have, and some other attorneys might have some questions for you right now.
Thank you.
Mr. South, we'll go to you first.
Thank you, Your Honor. Well, Ms. Estolette, I had a lot of questions, but I think you've answered most of them already.
Okay.
But I do have a couple. So when you were with the children's father, was he a stay-home dad?
Yeah, he was. In Portland, where we spent most of our years, I worked very part-time. And so I was able to be there, the majority of the time too. I guess he stayed at home, and they'd be in his care while I was at work.
Okay. And when the two children went to your mom's, was CPS about ready to take them away from you?
No, there was a case that got open. There was an incident where my daughter, who had just turned 18, got into our alcohol and got pretty rowdy and ended up pushing my son. And we called the police at that time, and that's where CPS was, the case with them was opened up. They were not getting ready to take the kids though, no.
Okay, so you just voluntarily kind of thought it best at that
Yeah.
time to,
And that's where they came over and interviewing us and stuff. There was a case, but they weren't gonna take the kids, no.
okay. I think that's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Angelico?
Thank you. How long have you been with Mr. Hebding? When did you first meet and get together with Mr. Hebding?
We met in 2012.
And are you married to Mr. Hebding?
No, we were never married.
Okay. And you indicated, well, you indicated some about CPS, but what was your relationship during 2012 to 19 like with Mr. Hebding?
What was our relationship like? It was good for the most part, until the issues kind of, and once we got to New York, I had some issues with feeling like I couldn't spend as much time with the kids once we moved there because I didn't have as good of a job, so I had to work more and be away longer, and then we both kind of started to drink too much at that time and ended up getting into some arguments and stuff like that. Nothing super major until the incidents that happened, at the end of the year there.
So in 2018 was when you moved to New York, end of 2018.
Yes.
So were both of you, or were both of you drinking prior to moving to New York?
We drank sometimes, but we weren't just, having a problem with it from the time we lived in Portland until the time we moved to New York. It was there that really it escalated a bit, and both ended up having some issues with getting a little too intoxicated sometimes.
And how about using marijuana?
I didn't really use a lot of marijuana, and very rarely. He smoked marijuana.
So was that from the time that you met in 2012 that you smoked marijuana? You cut out just briefly.
Yeah, he smoked marijuana when I met him.
And was he a daily user of marijuana?
Yes.
And did that continue all the way through 2019?
Yes. And then, I did it here and there. I wasn't a very heavy marijuana user.
You indicated that you had also, prior to the psychotic episode, you had some drug use. What kind of drugs were you using?
When I left the house there and ended up homeless for that short time in the winter, my roommate that lived there, she offered me some of what she called Molly, and I did. I snorted a small amount of it. I hadn't done anything like that for years, but I did at that time snort a small amount of what she called Molly, and I ended up, just vomiting and stuff like that. And that was just a one-time thing. But it was quite a bit before my psychotic episode started. It was probably a month before that or so. I don't know exactly.
When was Gabriel born?
2013,
And when was Celeste born?
2015.
So is it safe to say that between the time that Gabriel was born in 2013 and then Celeste was born, that both you and Mr. Hebding were using alcohol during those periods of time?
We didn't have an alcohol problem during that time until we got to New York, and it ended up becoming a problem, which was a factor in what happened in 2019.
Were you
But
in heat drinking in front of the children?
What's that?
Were you in heat drinking in front of the children?
Not during that whole entire time, not to an excess in front of the children.
How about in 2000, after you moved to New York in 2018 and the problem became worse? Were you drinking in front of the children?
Yeah, the kids, they would, we weren't hiding it or anything and sneaking in and we did drink.
The times that you smoked marijuana and then Mr. Hebding smoked daily, was that also in front of the children?
No, that would be outside, when they were sleeping. We wouldn't smoke inside.
Now, you indicated that your relationship, for the most part, was good. Has there ever been any physical violence within your relationship?
We got into a fight right before the incident in 2019. We got into a physical thing where we yeah, there was some physical violence during that. The cops were called, and that had to do with alcohol at that time.
And were the children present during the physical dispute?
The children were asleep when that happened. However, they were there when the other incident in 2019 occurred. My daughter was in the room. My youngest daughter.
And isn't it true Gabriel was in 2019, and that incident wasn't Gabriel in the room also?
Gabriel was in another bedroom, but he was in the house. He wasn't right in the room when that happened.
Your knowledge, was Gabriel interviewed about the incident in 2019?
I don't believe he was interviewed, since he was not able to see what happened.
Would it surprise you to learn that the police report in this case indicated he was interviewed because he
Your
was?
Honor, I'm going to object to this whole line of questioning. This has nothing to do with the standard that the court is trying to determine what happened 4 years ago. Trying to determine if the parents here are able to care for their children, what happened 4 years ago is irrelevant.
It has some bearing on the question of the safety of the children, so I'm going to overrule. Go ahead.
So again, wouldn't it surprise you to learn from the police report that was filed in this incident that Gabriel was interviewed because he
Maybe he was
was
interviewed.
physically
By
present?
police. My mom is the one who took them there, and I thought she just indicated he was not interviewed since he wasn't right in the room.
Well, I'm asking whether you were aware whether he was interviewed or not.
No, I know he went there and he got a stuffed animal and talked to them a bit, but my daughter was like taken aside and questioned about what she saw. I don't believe that happened with Gabriel.
Were you aware that Gabriel had drawn several pictures of what he witnessed at that incident?
No, because he was in the bedroom
Okay.
when that occurred. So he might have drawn a picture of the aftermath, but since he was in the bedroom, I'd be surprised if he drew a picture of what he saw during it. Yeah.
And were there any, the altercation in 2019? Had you and Mr. Hepting been arguing right prior to the stabbing?
Yes, we had been having a rough day that day in general.
And had the argument turned physical?
No, not between us. No.
Did you know Sean Sorensen?
Yes.
And what was Sean Sorensen to you or to Mr. Hepting?
Your Honor, I'm going to object to the relevance of this. And we're getting it way off the line of what the parent's ability is to parent today.
What is the relevance of the relationship between?
Mr. Sorensen, Your Honor, was the victim of the stabbing in that case. I'd like to establish the reason that the behavior between the two parties resulted in Mr. Sorensen being stabbed by
I'm
Mr.
asking what the relevance is of that.
Safety of the children and protection of the children, especially when they're in the same room as this event.
Well, you're going to establish, if you haven't already, that Mr. Sorensen was stabbed and apparently was stabbed in front of one of the children. I don't know that the motive for the stabbing is necessarily relevant to this inquiry.
Well, can I ask, Your Honor, whether or not Mr. Sorensen was trying to intervene between the argument between you and Mr. Sorensen?
Again, Your Honor, I renew my objection for relevance.
I will overrule on that question only at this point.
So was Mr. Sorensen trying to intervene between the two of you to break up the physical fight or the argument?
Not in my recollection.
So he wasn't, so it was not, he was not trying to intervene when he was stabbed.
No, there had been, that was a kind of a day-long thing where nobody was getting along with each other. And no, I remember being on the couch. I had music going on the TV. My youngest daughter was with me. When they started their shoving each other around and stuff, there was some talk about rent money being owed. And there was just, everyone was a bit intoxicated. At the moment the physical altercation between them started, that's not what I recollect.
So alcohol was involved?
Yeah, alcohol was involved that day.
How about drugs or marijuana?
No. And this was one incident over that we're talking about quite a long time where that was the one incident that we're focused on. So
So you had no concern really that Mr. Sorensen was stabbed in front of at least Celeste, if not also Gabriel?
No, I didn't say I had no concern. Of course I was concerned. I'm the one who picked her up and brought her out of the room and called the police.
You indicated that you were employed during the period of time and that Mr. Levy indicated that Mr. Hebding was a stay-at-home dad. My understanding is that that Mr. Hebding was stay-at-home because of some physical disability.
Yeah, his leg, his ankle and foot got lawn mowed as a child. So
And
He has
when you met him in 2012, was Mr. Hebding employed?
when I first met him, yeah, I think he was right before we got together. He lost that job somehow.
So during the time from 2012 to 2019, was Mr. Hebding employed during that period of time?
No.
So you were the financial support of the family?
For the most part, he gets disability money or SSI, and we were able to use, some of that for expenses as well.
Now you indicated about CPS, so were you contacted, to your knowledge, were you contacted because of the situation involving at least Celeste being present during the altercation in 2019?
Yeah, we talked to the CPS worker about the incident.
So it was not your understanding that because of that the children potentially were at risk of being taken from you?
No, they didn't say that they were going to try to take the kids or that they were about to take them, or no, it was a case that opened up that they were investigating. And I asked my mom if the kids could come here. I got subpoenaed for the grand jury at that time, so I could not come here to come with them, but I asked her to take them here. I didn't know anyone there who could take them, and she was willing to come get them.
And you have spoken to Ms. Farr, correct?
Yes.
As far as a report. When's the last time that you spoke with Ms. Farr?
I spoke to her briefly today.
Okay. And you indicated that you and Mr. Hebding aren't married. Is there any type, have either of you filed any type of family law matter regarding a parenting plan or
No,
that nature?
that's what we need to focus on after this.
And had you spoke to anyone about filing for a parenting plan?
Well, I spoke to my attorney briefly about that. He said that that wouldn't be his line of work, and so right now I've been researching parenting plans, and it's a little complicated with us being in separate states. But yeah, we're in the process of moving in that direction. That's what the goal is, to create a parenting plan.
And you were made aware by Ms. Farr, were you not, that there was a way to petition parenting plan on your own, pro se?
Yes.
And how long back was that?
A few weeks.
Okay, so only a few weeks ago.
Yeah. I think so. A few weeks ago when we talked about creating a parenting plan.
And as far as visitation, currently with Mr. Hebding living in New York, what do you believe would be proper visitation if he were to come to Washington for in-person visitation, or whether or not you would be agreeable to sending them to New York to visit him?
I don't feel that he's in a proper place to have them visit there in New York. If he came here to Washington, I feel that it would be okay for them to visit him as long as he was, had a spot to do that in. And he was thinking about coming during spring break, and then decided that it was too expensive at the moment for tickets. So we were trying to figure out how to organize that to let them, go down to Woodland or somewhere if he had a hotel room, or yeah, I wouldn't object to that. I would just have to know that, he wasn't gonna just try to take them from me and just keep on going somewhere or something like that.
So with those concerns, you would be okay for Mr. Hefting to have unsupervised visitation?
I think that would be fine. He's sober at this time, and
How often do you communicate with Mr. Hefting?
we were really not communicating very much at all over the past year. And then just some texts here and there about the kids.
So you have no idea about Mr. Hefting's sobriety, correct? You haven't personally seen or heard about his sobriety?
I've heard he's been sober for about 4 years. I can't verify it.
So the incident in 2019 doesn't raise any concerns with you about Mr. Hefting having
course
unsupervised
not.
visitation with the children?
I don't believe that he would try to harm his children. Of course, I have concerns. Just that was a very traumatic incident. I have concerns. I don't want them to be harmed. I don't believe that he would harm children. I don't have a reason to believe he would. I don't think during a visit that it would be a problem that I'd be putting them in harm's way.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have a couple questions. I don't know if you can remember back, but you were talking about the 2019 incident, and you said something about it was quite a long time in it. I was trying to figure out what you meant by that, what you were referring to.
I meant the time from the time Gabriel was born that we raised him, and then when Celeste was born, between 2013 when he was born and the end of 2019 when the incident occurred. And I kind of felt like this whole thing was focused around that one incident.
I see, and you thought we're ignoring everything leading up to that, which is quite a long time when things went okay.
I don't necessarily think it was being ignored. I just think it's a heavy focus on the one incident that was the climactic event that separated us from the kids.
How was Mr. Hebding as a father, say up until that incident?
I felt we could disagree sometimes about our methods of parenting. Sometimes I felt that he was a little bit impatient with the kids, and I wanted him to work. I didn't want to be the only worker, so there were some disagreements about that. But he did take care of them while I was at work, and they were fed and looked after. I didn't have to worry that he was going to hurt them while I was at work. And he would, when we did engage in any alcohol, it was when we were both there and the kids would be asleep, we'd have a drink or something. And so for the most time that we were raising them, we didn't have major issues going on, is what I mean. And it was the two of us raising them from 2013 until nearly 2020, where nobody stepped in to say, hey, you guys aren't doing that right or anything, And then the incident in 2019 that actually happened after Sean Sorensen moved into our house, which I was very upset about that being allowed to happen because he had just gotten out of jail and he needed somewhere to stay, and I didn't know the guy. So we had an argument about that. But that's when everything kind of really escalated, is when he joined into our household and the drinking was increased a bit. But yeah, I'm not trying to minimize that event and that assault. I just, that wasn't the whole extent of the parenting, since we were going to talk about like how our parenting was over the whole entire history.
During that event in 2019, it sounds like both children were present in the house. Is that right?
Yes.
There was testimony that Gabriel needed oral surgery because of cavities when he came out to Washington.
Yeah.
Do you have any comment on why he was in that state of health?
He was actually in really great health. He was up to his vaccines. He, went to the doctor regularly. I took him to the dentist, and they had found one cavity at that time, which was shortly before he came here. And it was, he has dental crowding. So it was in between his teeth. And they told me this is going to be a major issue. You need to make him floss. And I believe all his cavities since then have been because of the dentist. Shortly before he came here, they had only found one cavity. So the 5 gaping cavities or whatever is not exactly true until later.
So you're not denying there were 5 gaping cavities at some point?
No, because he did have to get his teeth done here. He also had to get some pulled so that he'd have the space for the new ones to come in.
Okay. When you lived in New York, did Mr. Hebding's parents assist you financially?
No.
Okay. Let me give you an opportunity, Ms. Estolette. Is there any questions that you were asked that you feel you need to clarify or that you want to comment on?
I guess I want to comment that, of course I cared. Of course I cared about the incident in 2019. It was a major event in all of our lives. I wasn't trying to minimize that. I quickly got my kids out of there. I still had a job at that time, and so I couldn't just stay home at the house with them. And that's why I had to get my mom to come get them. But I wasn't minimizing what happened at all. I wasn't the person who assaulted anyone. I was just there when it happened. And I called the police. I mean, I didn't just turn a blind eye that something like that happened. So I just want to clarify that. Other than that, my stability, I'm taking care of baby twins. They were preemies. I've been taking care of them and having them through the night and everything. Like, I'm mentally stable to care for children. There's no reason that I can't right now. I am able to stay here, thankful to my parents, and stay home with them right now. And that's a privilege. I could, get myself into a better financial situation if I put them into childcare right now, but I would like to continue the setup how it is now. I just don't see any reason why guardianship needs to change. I'm here in the household here with the kids every day. So engaging in activities with them, and as we all do as a group here with the kids. So I don't know. I know I'm going to think of things to say later that I didn't, but I guess that's all for now I wanted to say.
Let me just make sure I'm clear that you do not want the emergency guardianship granted. Is that right?
Yeah, I don't see.
And leave you with primary custody.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. I'm going to ask Mr. South any follow-up questions.
No, I don't, Your Honor.
Mr. Angelico.
Just one follow-up on the dental issue. You indicated that you have insurance that Gabriel and Celeste can go on to. Is that state health insurance?
Yes, it is.
To your knowledge, does that cover dental?
Yes, it does.
Okay, so it would cover braces for Gabriel if he needed braces.
I haven't exactly looked into the braces being covered by the Medicaid. However, I don't plan on leaving here right now, and they can still stay on her insurance like they were before this guardianship was proposed.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Goudet, any further questions of your client?
No, Judge, thank you.
Okay. All right, Ms. Estolette, thank you for your testimony.
Thank you.
We'll now turn to the case for the father. And so, Mr. South, how would you like to proceed?
I'd like to call Mr. Hebding. So, Mr. Hebding, tell the court your situation with the 2 children prior to the incident in 2019.
How far back prior?
From birth.
From birth, I was the stay-at-home father with them, and our relationship was great. There was no problem between me and the kids at all.
Okay. And you have a disability, correct?
Yes.
And does that allow you to work?
I can't keep a full-time job. I'm just not physically able to.
All right. But you do get some payments for your disability?
I do.
All right. You were able to contribute to the household with those funds, right?
Yes, I always paid half the rent, bought cell phones, paid for cell phone service, internet service, and TV subscriptions.
And prior to the incident in 2019, was there any issues that came up with the children that required any type of intervention by any state agency?
Just the incident where Lindsay's daughter had gotten in the alcohol and pushed Gabriel.
All right.
Gabriel hit his head and cracked his head open.
Okay. So where do you currently reside?
In Naples, New York, in
Okay.
my parents' home.
Okay. Who's in your parents' home?
Myself, my parents, and my Uncle Terry.
All right. And that's not a motorhome, correct?
No,
How many bedrooms are there?
there's 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms.
All right. And the guardian litem reports talks about seasonal campers. Can you address that?
There are no seasonal campers. I can only think of what that might be referring to, and that's when I was trying to get Sean Sorensen to leave the home and get out of here before the incident happened. And he just didn't get the message, even so far as when I said you can put a tent out in the yard, and he did it with snow all around him, was still staying in that tent. I just couldn't get him to leave. And that's other than that, I can't think of any seasonal camper
All right.
ever.
So the GL reports that your parents' house is infested with mold. Could you address that?
The house is not infested with mold. There was some water damage to some areas, and since then, when I came out of jail, very soon after I came out of jail, we replaced the roof, got a whole new roof, replaced all of the drywall that was damaged, got new siding on the areas that needed new siding. Any problems like that have been addressed and long ago fixed.
All right. Now, being that you were the stay-home father for a number of years, would you be able to care for the children at this point?
Absolutely.
Okay, so you're able to provide a loving, stable, nurturing home?
Yes,
Okay, would you be able to feed and clothe them? Provide for the
Absolutely.
personal care?
I would.
Okay. And do you have any question about your ability to make any judgments about raising the children?
I have no question about my judgmental abilities.
Okay, and you provided all those services, we'll call them, prior to the 2019 incident, right?
Yes,
All right.
I did the majority of the cooking, the cleaning, getting Gabriel up into school, meeting him down at the school bus after school, taking care of school snacks, homework. I did all of that.
All right. Are you sober?
Yes,
Okay, do you use marijuana?
yes, I do.
All right. What about prescription medications?
I have prescriptions. I have chronic pain and muscle problems that are addressed by medications.
Okay. The GL report that you used I believe oxycodone for daily, is that correct?
No, that is not correct. Even specifically during my interview, when I was talking to Ms. Farr, she asked me about my prescriptions, and I told her I get a prescription for oxycodone 5 milligrams, 30 pills that last 3 to 4 months. And her response to that exactly was, "Oh, no, that's not very much at all."
All right.
But here in her report, it seems she decided to add that as a daily.
Okay.
And I don't understand where that comes from, where she even got that. I would use it daily.
And you took a parenting class. Was that when you were in prison?
Yes, I was in jail when I did that.
Okay. Were you just in jail or did you go to prison?
It was just county jail.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then another certificate provided to the court is a healthy living program.
Yes, that was focused on grief and handling sadness, loss, and grief.
All right. So, but have you had any drug and alcohol treatment at all?
No, it hasn't been necessary
Okay. How long have you been sober?
since that day in 2019. That's 3.5 years.
All right.
I'm quite proud of that accomplishment. And it's not easy all the time.
So what is your intent as far as what would happen to the children if this guardianship were denied today?
I would like to create a reasonable parenting plan with the mother, fully acknowledging that I am able, willing, and of no danger to the children to take care of them here in New York for a period of time.
Okay. Are you asking the court to send the children to New York at this point?
That's to be determined on the parenting plan.
Okay. But at this point, that's not your intention, right?
No, my intention is to just get rid of this emergency guardianship so that we can continue, me and the mother, Lindsay, to create this parenting plan.
Okay. Have you had any incidents with law enforcement since 2019?
No,
All right. Is there anything else you'd like to tell the court this time?
not at the moment. I'll wait till after we're done with all the questions I'll be receiving.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Good Day, any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
You bet.
Mr. Hebding, so how you doing, sir?
Good, thank you.
Good. So what is the ideal parenting plan for you in your mind?
Well, I'd like to see, I'm not opposed to the kids staying there for school. They're already established there. They have friends there. And it's just the same thing I was talking with Lindsay about last year before her mother and stepfather put in this emergency petition, was that the kids come with me during the summer. I have them back shortly before school with enough time for them to do their annual camp out that they do as a family there and alternate holiday seasons. And I think that's quite reasonable considering there are 12 months out of the year. And I'm only asking for perhaps 2.5 months.
The majority of their time is well spent in Washington?
Yeah,
With
for
the
their school year?
Yeah, okay. But you like to have them in the summer?
I would, yes.
Okay, no more questions. Thank you, sir.
All right, thank you. Mr. Angelico?
So, Mr. Hebding, you lived in New York. We heard Lindsay indicate that you moved to New York in 2018.
Yes, it was April 2018.
April of 2018. 2019, that's when you moved to the current town that you live in. Where were you and she living? And at that time, I believe both Gabriel and Celeste were there too. So where were all four of you living?
Here in this house that we're at now. My
So
parents had moved out and given us the opportunity to rent to own the place here. So
Okay.
we were alone as a family, Lindsay, myself, Gabriel, and Celeste,
So,
until Lindsay's other daughter, Maddie, came to stay with us.
okay, and how old was Maddie when she came to stay?
She was 17 when she first came to stay, had her 18th birthday here.
Now, you indicated that there was an incident with CPS because the daughter, and I assume you are referring to Maddie,
Yes, Madeline.
that she got into alcohol and it pushed Gabriel and it injured Gabriel.
Yes,
Okay, and that was there at the house?
it was
Okay, and how old was Maddie at the time?
17.
So she got into alcohol that was being kept at the house?
Yes,
Okay. And we heard that you've been together with Lindsay since, we're together with Lindsay since 2012?
Yep.
Okay. And the separation occurred right after the incident in 2019?
yes.
Okay. And prior to that, we heard Lindsay kind of describe the relationship, but was that relationship prior to the incident in 2019? Had there been any domestic violence in your relationship?
No,
Had there been arguing?
there have been some arguments. Yeah,
Okay, so you're indicating that there was
arguments happen in any relationship I've ever witnessed.
and in fact, there was an argument that apparently that was occurring in 2019 between you and Lindsay. Is that correct?
There was an argument, yes.
Okay.
That did
Was
get a
that-
little bit.
Was that
Go
a
ahead.
physical argument?
It did end that way, yes.
Okay. And that's the time that both children were in the house, correct?
Yes, I believe they were, and I believe they were asleep.
Okay, was this the incident that are we talking about the incident with Mr. Sorensen?
No.
Okay.
No, I'm
So
talking about it.
this was prior to that?
Yes,
Okay. In the argument, in the incident with Mr. Sorensen, were you and Lindsay in an argument at that point in time?
no.
So how many times during your relationship has the argument became physical?
Not very many times at all, only once or maybe twice. I can't think of anything more than that.
Had the police been called other than other than with just Maddie, had the police been called prior to that because of either domestic violence or substance or alcohol abuse?
Yes,
How many times did that occur?
only once. It was after a long night of Lindsay drinking, and it was the night after an argument that we had. She was either still drunk or got drunk again real early in the morning, but by 9:30 in the morning, I couldn't handle the way she was being, so I called up my parents to come and take us down to their place for a little while.
How
So
did the police
maybe it's
become involved?
Because Lindsay called the police because I was taking the kids away, only
Okay.
down into town to my parents' place.
Had you been drinking in that incident?
No,
You indicated that that you are at present still using marijuana.
yes.
When did you first start using marijuana?
Oh, late teens, probably.
How old are you now?
I'm 41.
So at least 20 plus years ago.
Yes.
And are you a daily marijuana user?
No, not every day.
How often do you use marijuana in a week?
A few times.
Is that true from the whole entire period of time, or is that just recent?
No, that is not true for the whole entire period of time. That's recent.
Okay. Prior to, you indicated that you've been clean and sober, that you still use marijuana. When did the usage reduce down to 2 or 3 times a week?
It's been that way for a couple years now.
Okay. Prior to that, were you a daily user?
Before we moved to New York, I was a daily user. I had a medical card in Oregon, and that was my pain management.
How about in New York?
Wasn't using every day in New York.
Okay. And did you have a medical marijuana card in New York?
No, I didn't get one here.
Okay. And is marijuana at the time that you moved to New York, was marijuana legal in New York?
Yeah, I believe so at that time. Yeah.
Okay. And you indicated that you have disability income. How much do you receive in disability income?
I think it's 700 something they'll be giving me each month, and that's reduced from the maximum amount because I have started working with DoorDash. I'm driving deliveries, so they're kind of adjusting what they give me according to what I bring in with DoorDash.
So prior to working with DoorDash, how much were you receiving?
The maximum amount each year it went up.
Okay,
With cost of living.
so for instance, back in 2019,
I think it was 841 at that time.
okay.
I
And
think
what's the maximum currently?
it just went up over $900.
Okay, so with the $841, you indicated that you were at that point in time paying some things.
Yes.
How much was the rent on the house that you were in?
Here in New York,
Mhm.
$650.
Okay, so you were paying half of the rent out of the
I was actually
841.
paying more than half at that time because I always put in $450.
Okay,
That was what was half of the rent in Portland. And it was just the way it was. I had already had that money budgeted for rent. So there it went to rent.
and you were paying cell phone
Yep.
services.
I bought from the time we first got together, I bought both of our phones. I paid for our cell phone service. I also paid for our internet provider. I paid for the television services we were using. And that was my share of bills.
And what did those total?
I cannot even think of what they totaled at this time. It was, I think, around $80 a month for internet. We were on Sprint with the cell phones for the longest time, and then I couldn't afford Sprint anymore and moved us to consumer cellular.
So,
Basically, all of my money went into rent and bills.
so how was marijuana and alcohol purchased?
I had a medical card in Oregon, so I had a grower. I didn't pay anything for my marijuana then.
Okay, how about New York?
In New York, I didn't have much going on, so I didn't know. I wasn't buying marijuana on a regular basis or anything like that. Occasionally, I had a friend that would give me some from time to time, friend I go hiking with.
Now, have you ever lived in the motorhome on your parents' property?
No,
Never?
never.
Okay,
That is a recreational vehicle. I understand where you're coming from on that because Miss Farr had a detective come along here and take a picture. The picture he got was from down at the road. You can't see the house through the bushes. All he got was that motorhome, and she just took that assumption that that's where I lived, and it's not.
so who do you believe took the picture?
A detective from around here.
Wasn't the detective that investigated the stabbing in 2019?
I'm not sure if it's the same detective or not.
Did you see the report that Ms. Farr filed?
I did.
Okay. Now you indicated that you disputed that the home had mold. And then you indicated that it had damage to the house that you repaired, I believe, after you got out of jail.
Yes,
What was the period of time you were incarcerated?
it was a 1-year sentence. I spent 8 months.
Okay, so when did you go into custody and when did you come out of custody?
I went into custody that night of November 17th, or 16th or 17th, 2019. And I came out on July 20th, I think, maybe.
So is it possible that the home did have some type of mold or damage in 2019?
I know there was some water damage, yes.
Okay. Ms. Farr's report was completed and filed in August of 2022. And you indicated that you were able to read that report?
Yes,
Okay. And the attachments to the report?
yes, I saw the attachments.
Okay. Now, you're indicating that is it your maternal or paternal uncle that lives in the residence?
Paternal.
Okay. And your parents moved back into the residence?
Yes, yeah, after COVID was hitting really hard, my father, he wasn't quite retired at that time and he lost over half of his hours at work. So we all had to combine our houses to make it work.
And to your knowledge, has your uncle ever had mental health issues?
Yes,
And
his mental health issues are treated and very well under control. He is of no danger.
and if you have knowledge of what type of mental health issues does he have?
PTSD and mild schizophrenia.
Okay.
He's a veteran of Vietnam.
And you indicated he's under treatment currently?
Yes, has been for years and very well maintained.
Okay. And is it true that it's been since June of last year that you physically have seen the children?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Now, you did not, you had the incident in 2019 and you indicated you spent approximately 8 months in jail. Did that case, you did not deny that you had stabbed Mr. Sorensen, correct?
No, I didn't, but I didn't exactly assault and attack him either.
Okay, but you did stab Mr. Sorensen.
Yes,
Okay, and this occurred inside the residence that
inside the
you're
home.
living at currently.
Yes,
And at that time, you and Lindsay and the two children, Madeline and was it Mr. Sorensen was living in the house at that time?
well, I'd had him out in the yard in a tent by that time,
Okay, so only you.
trying to get him out of there, trying
And,
to get him to move along, and he wouldn't move along.
and your parents weren't living at the home at that time,
No, they weren't.
so they weren't present during the incident.
No, they weren't.
And at that time, how old was Celeste?
She was only 4 or 5 at that time.
She was born in 2015.
15.
And how old was Gabriel?
Gabriel was 6.
And were you drinking? Is it true that you were drinking prior to the incident?
Yes,
On November 16th.
yes, I was.
Had you used marijuana or any other drug prior to this incident?
No, not that day.
Is it true that there were numerous alcohol containers in the residence?
No. Well, wait a minute. There was a bunch of beer cans outside in a bag, yes.
How about inside the residence itself?
No, I don't believe there was a whole, there were probably some because we were drinking, yes, but it's not like the place was absolutely littered with them.
And the children were in the house?
Yes,
And during the incident itself, when this occurred, where was Gabriel at that time?
Gabriel was in Madeline's bedroom with her.
And where was Celeste?
She was on the couch with Lindsay.
And the dispute occurred in the living room?
Yes,
Okay. And isn't it true that your use of alcohol played a part in this death of Mr. Sorensen?
that's a hard question. Because, honestly, if it's that important to this case, I think we ought to maybe get into the context of what happened between Mr. Sorensen and myself.
I'm just asking you if the alcohol played a
Yes,
part.
alcohol played a part, but not necessarily my own consumption of it.
Okay. Did your temper lead to this incident?
No.
So the police responded. Do you recognize who Patrick Brewer is?
And he was the first detective I talked to.
Okay. Isn't it true that you made a
And I'm going to
statement?
object to this. Again, what does that have to do with why we're here today? Which is the ability, willingness of the parents to care for the children.
And also their health, safety, and welfare. I think it goes to safety. I'm going to allow the question.
Isn't it true that you made a statement to law enforcement to the effect that you stabbed Mr. Sorensen with a knife? And if you had a gun, you would have shot him?
No, that's not true. That was taken out of context and put into the report wrong by the detective.
Okay, thank you.
There's actual audio recording of the interview with me.
I just
And
asked
you
you
can,
if you said that to the,
no, I did not say that to the detective.
okay, thank you.
He put words in my mouth for that report.
And it's true that really you didn't have any concern for the trauma that caused the children to be witness to this. Did
That
you?
is not true.
Okay. And were you aware of whether or not Gabriel and Celeste were interviewed?
No, I was in jail and I wasn't allowed to talk to anybody.
Okay. Now, you provided your attorney with us the certificate of completion for the parenting group. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. When did you indicated, I believe, was that completed while you were incarcerated?
Yes,
And what was the length of the program?
5 weeks,
And how often did you meet for the program?
once a week.
So you had 5 sessions of parenting?
Yes.
parenting group? Okay. And did you also completed the men's group focusing on healthy living? And I believe you indicated that that was kind of concentrated around grief.
Yes. Grief and loss.
And was that program also completed while you were incarcerated?
Yes,
And how long of a program was that? 5
weeks as well.
And it met once a week?
Yes.
So you had 5 sessions of that?
Yes.
Did you indicate when Ms. Farr spoke to you that you completed those programs?
Absolutely, I did. And I sent her the same copies I sent to my attorney.
Did she indicate that she needed some additional information to be able to verify what type of programs they were?
She did, and I can't get the kind of information she was trying to have me get. I can't call the jail as an ex-inmate and ask for contact information for somebody that came in to instruct in the jail. They don't give that out to inmates.
So
I
did
can't
you
get
explain that to Ms. Farr?
Yes, I did, and I told her that she ought to call the jail if she wants that information, and she refused.
And other than those 2 programs, have you completed any other programs or training?
No, I haven't. The programs stopped at the jail because of COVID. They couldn't let anybody in.
How about after you were out of custody?
I went to AA meetings for a while after coming out.
How long did you attend AA meetings?
Over a year.
Are you currently attending them?
No, I'm not.
Did you have any type of anger management evaluation or treatment?
No, it wasn't necessary.
Domestic
It was-
violence evaluation or treatment?
No, it wasn't necessary. It wasn't requested by anybody.
How about on your own?
No.
Okay. Have you had a substance abuse evaluation?
No.
How about a mental health evaluation?
No,
Now, you indicated that you're currently driving for one of the food delivery services,
yes, DoorDash.
DoorDash. Prior to that, when was the last time you were employed?
It was before Lindsay and I got together.
So before 2012?
Yes.
And what activities does the injury prevent you from doing?
I can't stay on my feet an awful long time. It's messed with my back and stuff as well. Some days I wake up and my foot just doesn't want to work. On those particular days, I can't do all too much. If I had a job at that time, and I've lost a lot of jobs over my life, having that kind of problem where I'd wake up, my foot wouldn't work. I can't go to work.
That was prior to 2012 that you lost jobs?
Yes, and I got on SSI in 2011.
2011.
Yes,
And you indicated that you currently are prescribed oxycodone,
oxycodone. Yeah,
and that you're taking the prescription, you get a prescription and that's been lasting, did you say 3 or 4 months?
Yes, I get a 30 of the 5 milligram pills. It's the smallest dose they got. And those last me 3 or 4 months. I take them only as necessary for pain.
And were you also prescribed Flexerol?
Yes,
What is Flexerol?
Flexeril is a muscle relaxer. I have muscle spasms.
And how often do you take Flexerol?
1 in the morning and 1 at night.
So twice a day?
Yes,
And are you on any other type of prescription medication?
I'm on gabapentin as well for the nerve damage, nerve pain. And I've been on all of these medications for many years. And they have never prevented me from doing anything.
So you've been clean and sober, totally clean and sober for 4 years?
From alcohol, I still use marijuana.
Okay,
From time to
I'm
time.
talking about alcohol.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, 100% dry.
And other than alcohol and marijuana, have you used other drugs, non-prescription drugs?
In the past, I had experimented before. Yeah.
When
Yes.
was, approximately when was that?
Oh, geez, far distant past. Early 2000s, maybe.
And you resided in Oregon until 2018.
Right.
Your trial aid indicates that there was a dispute over the Oregon record search that was attached in Ms. Farr's report.
Yeah.
And
There's quite a few incidences on that report that yes, I was arrested, but in many of those incidents, I was not jailed. I was not convicted of the crime that I was first arrested for. Some of them are multiple arrests for the same crime, but just look like multiple crimes. Do you understand what I'm saying?
so do you have, is there a dispute that you were at least charged with the crimes that are listed on the sheet?
There are quite a few of those that I was never charged or convicted of. And also I would like to take notice to the dates of when those happened. And you can see that before the children were born, that's when everything stopped. There was one incident in 2015 for the unlawful possession of marijuana, and that was just an arrest report because I didn't have my medical card on hand to produce for the officer. That never appeared in court, and I was never officially charged with it. And that was the only incident since before the children were born.
What was the incident concerning the Canadian border?
Oh, we accidentally ended up going across the Canadian border, taking a wrong turn while we were on our way to a camping trip with my parents.
So you actually crossed the border?
Yes, there was no way to turn around without going over.
Didn't you indicate that you were denied entry into, Ms. Farr, that you were denied entry into Canada?
Well, yeah, I was denied entry, yes.
Okay. And where was that at? Which part of the Canadian border was that at?
And that would be Niagara Falls area, probably right there around
New York?
Buffalo. Yeah.
Okay.
And we ended up going across that bridge on accident, like I said, and all we wanted to do was turn around, and they turned us around. I was not charged with any crimes.
And other than New York, the New York incident, have you been incarcerated anywhere else?
In Oregon.
When was that approximately?
I think it was 2005 or 2009, something like that. It was quite a long time ago.
And how often have you been visiting the children by video?
Oh, at least twice a week, at least. Sometimes, quite often more. Sometimes Gabriel.
Approximately how long do they last?
Oh, anywhere from an hour to 2 or 3 hours. I did send a computer to them so that they could freely talk to me without having to worry about using somebody else's devices or anything like that. It's been great since then, because sometimes I'll just get a message or a call out of nowhere from Gabriel just to say hi or to ask me a question. It's real nice.
And currently, have you sent any type of funds to Lindsay or?
I have offered Linda in the past many times to send money, and she always had the same answer of, no, that's okay, we don't need it. So I have tried.
Okay, thank you.
That all? Mr. Hebding, I'll ask you the same question. Are there any questions you were asked that you feel you want to clarify?
No, I feel like I was pretty clear in my statements.
Okay. Anyone else had any additional questions for Mr. Hebding? Okay, all right. So at this point, we're going to hear from the guardian ad litem. And you were appointed the guardian ad litem in this case, is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And in that capacity, did you conduct an investigation?
Yes.
All right. Do you want to tell us, however you want to approach it, about your investigation and then what your conclusions are?
Okay. So this was an investigation on the emergency guardianship petition only. The standard petition has not been filed yet. The emergency petition was filed because father had requested to take the children on a trip to see the national parks across the country, and the petitioners who had been caring for the children were afraid that he wouldn't bring them back. So they filed for guardianship. The petitioners had the children in their care after the 2019 incident. My notes say that mother had been in a alcohol coma and was unable to take care of the children, and that the grandmother went to New York to get the children and bring them back, and that they've had them in their care since November of 2022, since the incident. And father had little contact with the children. He had been in jail for a year, and then when he got out, there had been little contact, and so there was no concern up until the point that the vacation was requested. The history, that, as I understand it, is that mother had been the breadwinner of the family, and father had been the stay-at-home dad, and dad was on disability. And mother, the issues between the couple were, the majority of the issues between the couple, aside from the alcohol use, was that that mother felt overwhelmed working, and then felt like she was coming home taking care of the children on her own, and father wasn't really pulling his weight. There were some DV incidents that occurred. There's been a history of drug use. There's a history of father's criminal record. And my notes say that father moved to New York to avoid some sort of charges. And I was just reading that a second ago. There was a DV incident, I believe, that happened, and then the father went to New York for that reason, and then mother followed after. That's not. Going forward, once the children were placed with grandmother and her husband, they have cared for the children and provided for the children. Mother has been living with them and assisting. I began interviewing in July, and my first conversation with mother was in August, and we had a discussion even in August about her filing a parentage action then, because at that time she had filed the consent to the guardianship, but then she was requesting that an attorney be appointed so that she would understand better what the consent actually meant. And so we have discussed a few times since then about getting a parenting plan in place. The mother still hasn't done that. And talking to her this morning, she's still working on those documents. I did suggest that maybe she go to legal aid for help now, so that she can get some help to get it in place.
I didn't get an attorney. I thought this was all connected. She knows that.
This isn't for anybody to comment. This is for Ms. Farr to speak.
Sorry, I thought I was muted.
Yeah, we need to be quiet while she speaks. Go ahead, Ms. Farr.
I believe the children are entitled to receive some income from disability because of dad's disability income, but that has not been applied for. my concern is that with mother is that I don't believe she's ready to parent the children independently. I think that she is doing a good job there in her mother's home and helping to take care of the children. But I don't believe, I mean, if the guardianship were to be terminated, she would have, if she were to have custody, she doesn't have a way to provide for those children. As long as they're living with her mother, then the children are being provided for, but the care, the financial care, the shelter is being provided by the grandparents. As far as father goes, and I also think that in my conversations with mother, I don't believe she has a full awareness of the impact that the DV incidences, especially the main one, has had on the children. And as far as father goes, so father has never had the children, never raised the children on his own. He was a stay-at-home dad, but mother reported that she still came home and took care of most of the day-to-day care after working. She said that her oldest daughter is the one that would babysit. And I have in my notes that she said that father drank and got sick and couldn't parent. He stayed home and played video games all the time. And I don't think that father has shown, at least has not shown to me any ability to parent other than just, his word. We're talking about the motorhome and the parents' home. He says he doesn't live in the motorhome. I have in my notes that father told me he lives on his parents' property. It didn't say that he lives in his parents' house. He said that there was a room in his parents' house for the children, but he said he lives on the property. And when I spoke with Detective Brewer, he's the one that told me that father was living in the motorhome. And he's the one that told me that there were seasonal campers. And that picture depicting the motorhome isn't necessarily for to show what the motorhome looked like, but it was more to show the clutter and other things around the motorhome on the property to show that there were what he called seasonal camping.
Your Honor, I'm going to object right now. First, the court considering any photographs that haven't been authenticated, and ask the court to disregard any information provided by Ms. Farr regarding hearsay statements from some detective in New York, and ask the court to disregard any of that information.
Well, the statements that she heard are not admitted for the truth of the matter, but they do go to the basis of her opinion. And so they're limited for, or they're admitted for that limited purpose. I think I am compelled to strike the photograph because it is not authenticated. So, all right, thank you.
I only received Mr. South's trial aid this morning. I haven't had a chance to go through the entire trial aid yet. I did start to go through some of it. Did you want me to just openly address some of that, or how did you?
Well, if you want to address whatever you went through, and then I'd be interested in your final conclusions at this point.
Okay. So in talking about father's prescription drug use, my notes say that he told me that he uses Flexerol, gabapentin, and then I did have 5 milligrams oxycodone. And then next to that, I put daily. So that's what my notes said, and that's what I wrote my report. That conversation was last summer. So, it's been so long that I can't remember exactly. All I can go by is what my notes say. One of the concerns about father is that he hasn't had any kind of domestic violence evaluation, treatment. And clearly that 2019 incident is a significant event that I would think would require some sort of evaluation and treatment. The children witnessed that incident, and it's concerning that I don't think either parent has awareness on how that has really affected the children. And so the bottom line for me is that I don't think that either parent is able to properly parent these children and protect them and keep them safe. I think that the emergency guardianship should be in place. And while there is some evaluations and treatments, and then a parenting plan should be put in place before there's even consideration of terminating the guardianship. So it's concerning to, one of the things that's also concerning to me is that the reason that this petition was filed was because the petitioners and I believe mother were afraid that dad would just take the children and not bring them back when he requested the vacation. So now dad has recently requested the spring break, but then didn't follow through with that. But he has said that he wants summers. So without something like that in place, there's no guarantee that father would bring those children back.
So Ms. Farr, you had provided, just kind of go in order of some things you had testified to. You stated that the father went to New York to your understanding, avoid some charges.
Yeah, yes, that is what I said. The specifics of that I would need to find here in my notes, and I do have them.
You provided a criminal history from Oregon on Mr. Hebding as part of your report and addendum. Was there anything in any type of assault charge within the last 13 years, 12 years?
The last assault charge that is on that shows on Odyssey was 2010.
Yes. So, and they moved to New York in 2018. Is your contention that it took 8 years to prosecute that issue?
Well, I'm not saying that there was an arrest.
I think that's what you did say, though, isn't it?
No, I said to avoid some kind of DV charges, I believe I said.
Okay, that's fine. So in your report on page 8, you state that, to quote this, it is important to note that Lindsay is not unfit. So you do not feel that that Lindsay is an unfit parent, correct?
So yes, because there's a difference between unfit and able and willing.
Oh, correct. So she's willing, correct?
She's willing.
And why is she not able?
She doesn't have an income. She doesn't have a place to live independently. She hasn't received any kind of mental health treatment. She and in talking, she hasn't filed a parenting plan.
Stop you and go through those. Okay. She does have a place to live, correct?
Not independently.
Well, we're not talking about hypotheticals here. We're talking about right now.
So I believe that this,
really know what happens today. She does have a place to live with the children, right?
but that's not what the statute is. That's not the way I interpret the statute.
You interpret the statute, say hypothetically in the future, this person, the parent has to do something?
No, that she has the ability to provide X, Y, and Z, and one of those is shelter.
Well, she certainly has the children sheltered, doesn't she?
The grandmother is providing the shelter.
The mother provided the shelter by placing the child with the grandmother some years ago, correct?
That's true.
Yes, okay. So she does have the ability to shelter him at this time. And we don't need to worry about hypotheticals in the future, right?
And yes, okay.
Okay. And you went on to say that financially, the children are being fed, clothed, they're being taken care of financially, correct?
The grandparents are, yes.
The children are.
The grandparents are providing the financial means for the children to be cared for.
Yes, they are. Okay, and anywhere in the statute that says that lists the financial requirements of a parent to be have the ability to parent?
Yes. 20, did you want me to tell you what that was?
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so 2609004 2F says providing for the financial support of the children.
Yes, okay. And the mother is providing for the financial support by having them live with her parents, correct?
That's not the way I understand providing for means.
I'm sorry, what's your definition then?
that she is able to provide financially, not
Independently?
assign someone else to provide financially.
That she has to do it independently.
Yes.
So she can't rely on state aid or anything that in that.
No, I think that's different than relying on someone else to provide for their care in their home.
Why is it?
Because that's a service, that's a benefit that she is entitled to based on whatever her financial situation is. But she should have applied for the children's disability based on the father, and that hasn't happened yet either.
What about child support? What if she was a widow?
So again, that's a benefit. That's not placing the children in someone's care for them to provide as a surrogate financial provider.
And you're basing that on just your opinion, right?
That's my perception, yes.
Yeah. So if she provides a good home and shelter and care for the children, it's got to be the way that you think it should be, right?
Great objection. It's getting into argumentative questions, Your Honor. These questions have been asked and answered, and I think it's time we move on.
I'm going to sustain under asked and answered.
Okay.
You can ask another question.
So you stated that the mom's not ready to parent alone. And is that based on finances?
Well, it's based on finances, and which also, as I said, not being able to provide, and if she cannot provide independently for those children, for any of the children's needs. She is there with her mother, assisting her mother in providing for those children.
Okay. So is there any other reason other than the finance she's not ready to parent alone?
I believe she should probably have a mental health evaluation. And
Based on what?
based on the conversations I've had with her, where I don't believe she has awareness of how the children have been impacted by the domestic violence, the drug use, the alcohol use,
So
and their health care.
So I'm trying to get this straight in my head here. So you feel that she doesn't understand the impact of the prior incident, and that makes her need mental health evaluation, which then not having the mental health evaluation makes her unable to parent her children.
Yeah, but if she doesn't have awareness of how that has impacted the children, then she doesn't have the ability to protect them.
Explain that to me. I'm not sure what you mean.
If she doesn't have the awareness of how the DV incidents, the alcoholism, the drug use, how all of that has impacted the children, she doesn't have the awareness and the ability to protect them going forward. If she doesn't understand how it's impacted them in the past or currently.
Okay, so where did you come up with this alcoholism?
By the mother's own admission. There's been heavy drug use, alcohol use, fathers has alcohol use. Both parents admitted it.
Her testimony was that they both drank alcohol. There was never any indication that they were alcoholics.
Objection, Your Honor. That's a statement and not a question.
Sustain.
So you feel if she had a mental evaluation and had treatment, then she would be able to provide shelter and care and safety for the children. Is that correct?
I believe if she had a mental health evaluation, then we would have more information to know if she needed treatment in order to be able to protect those children from harm.
And you heard Lindsay's mother state that she felt that Lindsay was able to fulfill her parenting role, correct?
With assistance, yes.
Well, that's not what she said. You're putting words in her mouth, correct?
No, she said with assistance several times.
So, yes or no answer. You said grandmother said that the mother can fulfill her parenting role. Yes or no?
I would have to say no.
You're saying that mother didn't say that. I'm sorry, grandmother did not make that statement?
That wasn't the complete statement, no.
Okay. You would you agree that the grandmother would have a better grasp on the mother's parenting skills than you would?
Yes,
And you, okay. So you said you don't believe the father has any ability to parent. Correct. He hasn't shown any ability to parent.
I haven't seen his ability to parent, no. I haven't seen his ability to protect those children from harm, provide for them
Sorry,
financially.
just answer the question.
Okay,
So that was your statement that he has no ability to parent. You said, and then you followed him and said you haven't seen that. Have you, in all your contacts with the father, has he ever had the children with him?
no,
Then how is it that you judge his ability to parent when he's never had the opportunity to parent,
by the information I've gathered.
which is that he was a stay-home father for a number of years, correct?
No, that's not the only information.
But you testified that he was a stay-home father,
I did.
and he had one incident in 2019, which led to him being incarcerated, correct?
I don't know if that's the only incident that led him to be incarcerated.
Okay. So do you know of any other incidences that caused him to be incarcerated?
Yes, I believe he testified that he was incarcerated in Oregon.
I don't recall that testimony. Do you recall what he said about that?
No, I don't recall.
All right. And you earlier testified that you felt the reason that this emergency guardianship was put in place because you were concerned, because the petitioners were concerned that the father would take the children on vacation and not bring them back, correct?
Correct.
And was there any indication that that was going to happen that you found in your report?
Only what the petitioner told me.
All right. And did you investigate it any further than taking the petitioner's word at face value?
No,
You feel that? So is it your feeling that's the basis for the petitioner's petition?
there wasn't a parenting plan in place to protect the custody of those children in the mother's care, and that the father was asking for a cross-country vacation with the children, and they feared that the children would not be returned without a custody order. Yes.
Yes, we understand the petitioner's position on that.
I'm sorry, maybe I misunderstood. I thought that's what you just asked me.
No, what is your position on that? Do you think that would have happened? I'm sorry, let me strike that and rephrase. Did you do any investigation into any possibility that the father was going to abscond? Well, it couldn't be abscond because he has just as much right as anyone else to the children, but that he was going to take the children and not return?
So my job as an investigator is to gather and report the information that I'm told. And that is what I did. I gathered the information by the people who told me what their reason was for that, what the petitioner told me was the reason for the petition.
Yes. And did you investigate with the father, his position on that claim?
I don't believe that I had that discussion with the father, except that the father said that he requested the vacation and that they wouldn't allow him the time because they were afraid he wouldn't bring them back.
Okay. That's all I have, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Angelico?
Did you want Mr. Goodday to go first, Your Honor?
Sure, I can do that. Mr. Goodday, do you have any questions?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
So Ms. Farr, without a parenting plan in place, do both parents kind of have equal right to the children?
That's my understanding.
So without any guardianship or without any parenting plan, Mr. Hebding, he can't just come in and take the kids out of the home with force, right?
Sure, I could.
But the Estolets could defend the kids and try to prevent that from happening?
Well, I mean, you're asking me hypothetical questions too, that I mean, I can't foresee what would happen as far as, you know, who's going to defend and who's going to, I don't know.
I guess the reason I'm asking is I'm just wondering why the guardianship's necessary. Like, if there's no guardianship, kids are still going to be fine at home with the Estolets, right?
Not necessarily. If father were to come and try to remove the kids, there would be nothing to prevent that from happening. But more than just that, mother doesn't have the ability to provide for those kids. So independently, so if mother were to, I know that we've had testimony from mother saying that she intends to stay living there. She's grateful for it. But if something were to happen, she wouldn't have the ability to provide for those kids independently. The petitioners have been providing for those children in every way.
So you're saying that without the guardianship, there's a danger that Lindsay could take the kids away from Linda, and then that would make you uncomfortable because you don't feel like Lindsay's ready for that on her own?
I don't believe that she has the ability to be able to parent those children independently, provide for them financially, or keep them safe. Yes.
But father, he doesn't have any legal right to come in and just take the kids from them, though, right?
Well, I don't think I can answer the question whether I can't give legal advice, but my understanding is, yes, he could. He has just as much right to the children as mother does without a custody order.
So is the guardianship to protect the kids from one of the parents taking them? Is that the idea of this?
The guardianship is to have an adult in that has the authority to provide for and protect the children.
But isn't it kind of overkill when Lindsay and Linda are together living in the same house? They both seem to be on the same page.
No, I don't believe it's overkill.
Okay. All right. No more questions.
All right. Mr. Angelico?
Thank you, Your Honor. You conducted an investigation. You filed your report on August, was it 17th
Yes.
or 18th? As part of your investigation, did you have contact? You had contact with the petitioners, with Lindsay, with Mr. Hebding, Robert, with Gabriel and Celeste. Is that correct?
Yes.
When you had contact with Lindsay, the petitioners, and the father, do you provide your information to them in case they have additional information or documentation to provide to you? They can reach you.
Yes. And at the end of every conversation I have, I always say, if anything comes up, if there's anything I should know about, if you have any questions, to please make sure to get a hold of me.
Now, you spoke to Gabriel, did you not?
Yes.
And at the time you spoke to him, how old would he have been?
I believe he was 9.
And he was in school, is that correct?
I didn't speak to him at school, but yes, you were asking me, was he going to school?
Yes, was he attending
Yes.
school?
Yes.
Speaking to him, did he appear?
Well, sorry about that. I think it was during the summer, so he wasn't actually in school.
Okay. When you spoke to him, did he appear to understand the reason that you were contacting him or speaking to him?
Yes.
And can you kind of give a brief summary of the conversation with him?
Yes. So I explained to both children that, my job was to, that I was assigned by the court, and that my job was to make sure that they had plenty of food to eat, a place to live, and that they were safe. And so I would be asking them questions to make sure that to determine what those things were. And then I would be telling the judge the answers that they give me to the judge.
And did Gabriel express what he would like to see happen in this case?
Gabriel told me that he would like to stay with his grandparents in his grandparents' home.
Did he say the reason for that?
I'm sorry, I'm not seeing in my notes what his specific answer was.
Okay. Did Celeste appear to understand your role and what you were trying to do?
I believe she did, yes.
And she was a couple of years younger at that time than Gabriel.
Yeah, I believe she was 7.
And part of your investigation, did you acquire information concerning the health of the children prior to and then after coming to live with the petitioners?
Yes,
And did you acquire information concerning the school or schooling of the children?
yes,
Was there any issues concerning school attendance before they came to live with petitioners?
yes. So Gabriel had missed a couple of weeks of school in 2019.
Was that prior to the incident in 2019?
I believe it might have been after. I believe that that was part of what led up to the grandmother flying out to pick the children up.
So he wasn't in school.
Yes,
And has there been any issues with schooling after the children have come to live with petitioners?
not that I'm aware of.
Are you aware of how well the children are doing in school?
The last that the petitioner told me, the children were doing very well. That would be, I think we had a conversation in March. And she told me that the children were doing well then.
And we've heard testimony concerning the dental work. You also
Yeah.
have that information, correct?
Yes, I believe I attached some of the dental records or bills to my report.
Now, were you able to form an opinion as to how the children have been doing living with the petitioners?
Yeah, I think the children, what I've been told is that the children are healthy, happy, sleeping well, going to school, and everything is going well.
Was there anything during your contact with the petitioners that raised any concern?
About the children being where they are now? No.
Now, you had contact with Lindsay, children's mother, as part of the investigation.
Yes.
Originally, you indicated that you believe you spoke to her. When was the first contact with her?
I believe it was in July, late July. Okay, so actually I correct that. It was August 1st. And she told me that she was due to have a C-section in a few days. She described the home that her and the family lived in. She said that she would like to be able to have her own place in the future to be able to care for the children independently. She described that Mr. Hebdeen's parents' home had mold in it, and it was not a suitable place for the children, that his mother could not handle noise, and it caused a great deal of stress. And so that it wasn't appropriate for the children to be around them. She described Mr. Hebdeen's disabilities. She said he didn't have patience to watch the kids when he was the stay-at-home dad. He couldn't take them anywhere because he didn't have a driver's license. That her older daughter, Madeline, would be the babysitter because Mr. Hebdeen would drink and get sick, and he couldn't parent, or he played video games all the time. That they lived off of her income, and that most of his income went to alcohol or marijuana. She described some of the jobs that she had, and that jobs that he had promised. He promised to get a job, but he didn't. And she believed that he was capable of working. Those are the notes that I had from that conversation.
Did you note any notes concerning any type of history of domestic violence in a relationship with Mr. Hebdeen?
So that was probably a different interview. Let me see. So there was off and on domestic violence. I remember that from memory.
Is that something that she indicated to you?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, from memory, I believe that she told me that there had been a few incidents of domestic violence, and some of them had happened in Oregon, and then the ones that happened in New York.
Did you have a conversation with her about her alcohol usage?
Yes, she said she had struggled with alcohol and substance abuse. She had taken steps to recover. She was participating more in parenting the children now. She was participating more at that time in parenting the children because she had taken the steps to recover. But she had struggled with it in the past.
Yes. Have you had any recent contact with Lindsay?
Yes, I spoke with her this morning.
I believe that's what she indicated previous. Was there anything about that conversation that raises concerns with you?
The main thing was that the parenting, family law parenting action hasn't been started yet. Again, the way I perceive the conversations with her, I just don't believe that she has the awareness of the impact of what has taken place with the domestic violence, with the drug use, with any of it, in order to properly protect the children.
Switching a little bit of gears, who is Patrick Brewer?
He's the detective in New York, Yates County.
How did you happen to have contact with Mr. Brewer?
He actually contacted me.
And was there any indication that was out of concern for the children?
Yes. When he contacted me, he wanted me to.
Objection, Your Honor, this is hearsay.
Mr. Angelico,
Again, it's a part of the investigation, Your Honor, that she's relying on and forming an opinion in this particular case.
it's not being admitted for the truth of the matter, just the words that he told her. Is that understood?
Yes.
Okay. All right. So it's admitted for the limited purpose of how it impacted Ms. Farr's opinions. Go ahead, Ms. Farr.
Okay, so he told me that Mr. Brewer told me that he had some serious concerns about the things that went on at the residence of Mr. Hebding's parents. He said that it was a well-known property to them. And he's the one that said that there were seasonal campers. He said that the property was a dump and that it was not a suitable environment for children to be in, and that the police were well acquainted with that property and they go out there often. Sorry.
Go ahead.
He also then described to me the 2019 incident because he was one of the detectives involved in that.
Did he ultimately provide you documentation concerning the investigation of the incident?
He provided me with the police reports.
And is that what's attached to your report?
Yes.
Is it your understanding that both of the children were present during the incident in 2019?
That was my understanding.
And do you have any understanding of whether or not Gabriel was interviewed?
My understanding was that Gabriel was interviewed, as well as Celeste. Mr. Brewer told me that Gabriel had drawn pictures depicting his father with angry teeth and the other gentleman involved with a knife in his hand. Or let's see. Sorry, one was with angry teeth and the other was of the other gentleman, and he had a knife impaled into him.
Does the presence of children at that incident raise concerns to you?
Absolutely.
What concerns are raised?
Well, concerns of how it affects the children's mental well-being, how it affects their physiological well-being. I mean, everything. Children can be very impacted by these types of incidents. Feeling safe.
As part of your investigation, did you have contact with Mr. Hebding? Did he describe his current living situation to you?
Yes. Mr. Hebding, what my notes said that Mr. Hebding told me that he lived on his parents' property. He had also described, what he gave in his testimony about that they had the opportunity to buy the house and his parents had moved back in, but he just said that he lived on his parents' property and that the uncle also lived there.
Did he express any concerns that he had that the children would have been present in 2019 incident?
No,
Did he indicate to you that he had any type of alcohol or marijuana or substance abuse issues?
he told me that he admitted that he drank and and he smoked marijuana. I don't think that he thought they were issues.
Did he indicate how often he was smoking marijuana?
I believe it was daily.
Did he indicate that he had any type of temper or anger issues?
No, I don't believe he thinks he does.
Did he indicate any history of domestic violence in the relationship with Lindsay?
I believe he told me just about the one incident, but I learned of others. He did say that he hadn't had alcohol since he was released from jail. I just don't think there's any recognition of what domestic violence really is.
He did indicate to you, he indicated that he told you that he had completed both programs and provided the certificates to you. Is that?
Yes,
Did you ask him for other documentation concerning those programs?
I asked him to provide me contact information so I could verify that the certificates were authentic,
And what was his response to your request?
that it was my job to do that.
Did he to date provide any type of additional information for you to verify the programs and what they consisted of?
He just told me to call the jail and find out on my own.
Then, other than the 2 documents provided by him, has he provided any other documentation?
Not that I remember.
What's your most recent contact with Mr. Hebding?
Oh, I don't think I've heard from him since I filed my report.
Okay. And in response to the question about whether or not you had direct knowledge of viewing the house that he's living in currently, are you able to travel to New York to make a home visit?
No,
Has he provided anything that would indicate the condition of the home that he's currently living in?
no,
Did he speak about his disability?
yes,
And concerning, you were aware, I believe, or he made you aware that he was on disability.
yes.
And did he discuss at all the extent of his disability or the limitations he has because of him?
Yes.
What did he say?
That it causes him pain to stand for periods of time. So mainly that he has the limitations are due to chronic pain.
Did he tell you about the prescription medication he was on?
Yes,
And I believe you indicated that your notes reflected that you believed he was on oxycodone daily.
yes. My notes say takes gabapentin, Lexerol, and 5 milligram oxy daily.
In regard to the criminal history, where did you obtain the information that you have?
So as I said, I got the police reports from Detective Brewer, and then the other list that I put together is what I gathered off of the state of Oregon's Odyssey system.
Do you have any notes to the effect that you've had any contact by Mr. Hebding concerning criminal history other than when you originally spoke to him?
No, I have. Mr. Hebding has not contacted me, and so, after I filed my report, I haven't heard any objections or suggested corrections or anything. Nope, he hasn't contacted me at all.
Was that up until today that you realized that there was some dispute about the report?
Correct.
Okay. Now, based on your education, training, experience, along with the information and documents that you obtained in your investigation, is it your opinion that either Lindsay or Robert would be able to parent the children?
Not independently, no.
And based on your education, training, and experience, along with the information and documents obtained in your investigation, again, what is your recommendation as to granting the emergency guardianship?
My recommendation is to put the emergency guardianship in place. I believe that there needs to be some mental health evaluations, domestic violence evaluations, treatment if needed for either. And then once the parents are have completed those and are able to parent, then of course, then the parenting plan needs to be put in place. But in the meantime, I believe that the petitioners are the ones who have been providing all of the day-to-day needs for the children, meeting their financial needs, protecting them from harm. Neither parent is fully doing that, and that I don't believe that the children would be provided and protected unless the guardianship is put into place.
Mr. Southend, to ask you whether or not you investigated whether the children would be returned if Mr. Hebding had them either in New York or elsewhere. Is there a way to investigate that?
I'm sorry, could you say that again?
Sure. He asked you about the fact of whether or not you had investigated whether or not the children would be returned by Mr. Hebding if he had them in New York. Is there a way to investigate that?
No.
Based on the information that you've gathered, do you believe that he possibly would not return the children?
I believe it's a good possibility.
Okay. Was there anything else said today at this hearing that would change your conclusion that the emergency guardianship petition should be put into place?
No. I believe it should be put into place for in the emergency proceeding. There is not a standard proceeding, and my investigation was limited to the emergency proceeding, and I believe that the emergency guardianship should be granted.
Thank you.
I have one question, which is you've mentioned a couple times that, and I'll relate it to Ms. Lindsay Estelat, that you've stated there's been no recognition of the impact of the domestic violence. What would you be looking for? What is it you're not hearing that leads you to that conclusion?
What I'm not hearing is any admission of responsibility, of awareness of what the children have gone through, how it's impacted their mental health. When I talk with her, it seems like, yeah, it's over, it's done with, was a one-time thing. There's just not an awareness or recognition of how significant that one event can impact those children for the rest of their lives.
Based on the questions that you were asked, is there anything that you would like to clarify?
Not that I can think of right now.
Does anybody have any follow-up questions?
I do, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. South.
So, Ms. Farr, you've testified that your concern in the mother not recognizing the need for the children to have some type of counseling shows that the mother is somehow unable to parent. Is that correct?
I don't believe that the word counseling has come up.
Okay, well, addressing the issue then.
Oh, so sorry, can you can you ask me that again?
So you testified that Lindsay not recognizing the need to address those issues with the children shows her to be unable to parent.
Yes, if she doesn't recognize how a significant event has affected the children, then she's not going to be able to recognize how to protect them in the future.
Okay. Can you tell me how Linda Estelat has recognized the need for that and done anything about it with the children? Have the children been in counseling? Have the children, has Linda Estelat addressed that issue with the children?
I believe that's a question you will have to ask her. I don't have information about that.
You don't have any information. You didn't ask her about whether the children are in counseling?
I don't recall.
Okay. If she didn't do that, would that necessarily make Linda Estelat also unable to parent the children?
No, Miss Linda was not involved in that domestic violence.
We're addressing how it impacts the children.
Right. What I'm saying is, so when two parents are involved in domestic violence in the presence of the children, and they don't recognize how that impacts the children, that's a concern. Linda is providing a safe home without any domestic violence in it. That's completely different.
But it still should be a concern of hers how that impacts the children.
Well, I'm certain it's a concern of hers how her daughters and Mr. Hebding's domestic violence impacted the children. But I don't, I guess I'm just not really understanding what you're asking me.
Okay, we'll move on then. So Mr. Angelico asked you to, if the father voiced any concerns of how the incident affected the children, and you said no. Did you ask Mr. Hebding that question about how he thought that may have affected the children?
Well, sure. I mean, we had a discussion about the incident. We had a discussion about all the issues surrounding that incident and how they came to Washington because of that incident.
I'm talking about the
so-
incident itself. I'm talking about the impact on the children.
Yeah, and that's what I'm trying to answer. So when I ask questions about things like that, then I let the parent talk and see if they voluntarily start talking about what their recognition is. And Mr. Hebding did not. I think his focus was more on, the adversity with the grandparents, between him and the grandparents, than it was about the children.
So it's your testimony then that you want the parents to guess at what you want, the questions you want them to
No,
answer.
that's not my testimony.
Okay.
So I asked the parent a
But
series.
you didn't ask him directly about the impact.
I don't have a list of questions of what I actually asked him, and it was a year ago, so I can't really answer whether I directly asked him that or not, but I did give him the avenue to express himself about those kind of issues.
Yes, basically making him guess what you wanted.
Again, Your Honor, that's not a question.
Sustained.
Okay, I'll move on. Did you ask Mr. Hebding about the condition of his parents' house?
Yes.
Did any of that, what did he tell you? Did he tell you it had mold in it?
No, he did not.
And did that make it into your report?
No, what? I mean, I had no reason to put that into my report.
Well, you put then that it was reported that the house was full of mold,
Yes.
and the fact that Mr. Hebding brought up wasn't worth reporting.
I put in my report what Mr. Hebding told me. And let me just see. So that's all the information I have, is that he just told me that that he lived on the same property. He didn't go into any details.
So you didn't ask him if he lived in a motorhome or mobile
I
home?
believe that I believe I interviewed Mr. Hebding prior to learning the information about the mold and all of that. I believe Mr. Hebding was, I started my investigation with Mr. Hebding.
Okay, and you didn't follow up with Mr. Hebding to confirm or deny that?
Mr. Hebding was not really open to talking to me.
Council, we need to wrap it up in 3 minutes.
Okay, well, I'm done with questions, but I don't know how we're going to get the closing in.
Well, that's what we're going to talk about. We can't do closing today. We need to wrap this up at 5. Court actually closes at 4:30, so we're well
Your Honor.
past that time.
May I address you about a question that Mr. South had?
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, about the behavioral health consultations, they did have some behavioral health consults, the children did.
Was that paid for by your insurance?
Was covered by our insurance, yes, it was. Thank you, that's it.
All right, so the evidence is now in. Everybody's testified. What we have left is closing argument and then my decision. And we don't have court time available at this point to do it. So my first thought is to put this over to Thursday at 10:30 on the regular minor guardianship docket. I would need Mr. South, Mr. Angelico, Mr. Hebding, and Ms. Linda Estelet. I would absolutely need you. Ms. Farr, you can be there if you want, but you don't have to be. Excuse me. Also, Mr. Goodday would have to be there. Is that available for all of those individuals.
Yes.
That works for me, Your Honor.
That's on the regular minor guardianship docket.